This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. My mom said me coming out was selfish and all about me. Studies show that LGBTQ plus community believe the most difficult rejection they face in life is first, evangelical and church in general. Second, conservative politicians that speak against LGBTQ plus and legislate against us. But the third may come as a surprise. Your family is a major stress point in coming out and simply existing as queer. Recently, in Sub-Reddit GayChristian, a member discussed how he does not know how to deal with the hurt and confusion caused by his mother when she said coming out was selfish. The conversation on coming out was an act of selfishness that would embarrass family members. Not about support, she needed to accept her queerness. Community members were supportive, with one comment saying, quote, "Anything that follows is no longer your burden to carry," unquote. I might say amen. There was much criticism of her mother. The interaction sheds light on the importance of parent support for LGBTQ plus children and youth. According to a 2016 study published in LGBT Health, family rejection increases the odds of substance abuse and suicide attempts for LGBTQ plus people. These results mirror a survey done by Dr. Caitlin Ryan and the Family Acceptance Project, which found that LGBT plus youth whose families affirm their gender identity and sexual orientation are almost 50% less likely to make a suicide attempt compared to those whose families are unsupportive. There are many organizations in South Florida that cater support and counseling to the parents and friends of LGBTQ plus children, such as Parent and Family Support Navigation by SunServe, LGBTQ plus youth organizations like Safe Schools and PRISM can help. National organizations like the Trevor Project and It Gets Better Foundation are also there for you. Sunshine Cathedral has spiritual support programs to help LGBTQ plus youth and their parents. But the real question is, how you balance a perception of selfishness from family, the need to be authentic, and how faith intersects with these vitally important issues. Well, first, I have to say that coming out is not selfish. It simply isn't. It is self-preservation. You are telling the world who you are. That is the purest thing that one can do. That is the least selfish thing that you can do. There are stories that abound about families who are now becoming more receptive and more comfortable with children coming out. And unfortunately, I grew up in a time when that wasn't really the case. I lived in a household where, thank goodness, my mother was maybe the best human being on the face of the planet. She knew I was gay a long time before I was gay. And I really believe that parents, if they know their children, know who they are long time before the child even begins to understand who they are. But there were the membership classes that really broke my heart sometimes, when people would start talking about how their families mistreated them, how their families, many of them threw them out. Yeah. I mean, that is just difficult. So it's not that surprising that there are people who are still coming to the table talking about how they're not being accepted by family. And I tell you something, I'm just beginning to touch on the Reddit groups, the subgroups, and it is amazing that there are places right there in social media where queer folk, LGBTQ folk, trans folk, people of all stripes of life can go and be their true selves and be able to express themselves in ways that they may not have been able to before. So, and that parent They failed parenting 101.
Yeah.
They simply failed parenting 101. Your job as a parent, and it's a difficult job sometimes, but the easy part of being a parent is to support your child when your child tells you who they are. Yeah. It's like them saying, hey, Mom, I want to go to a music conservatory. If they've got the talent, you support them. Hey, Mom, I want to play football. If your daughter's got any talent, let her play football if it's safe for her. I'm serious. But if you're telling your child that you, my dear child, are being selfish because you came out, then I think it's the parent who is being selfish. And if the family is not supportive, if the parent is supportive, then the family generally comes around. If they're going to follow mom and dad more times than a little bit. And again, we talked about it in the article. There are groups that are out there that will help you get through it. And the Reddit groups may be the best place for folk to go initially.
Yeah, sure.
It's just a wonderful thing. So find those organizations, find those subgroups, find Reddit. And work with it so that you can begin to understand that you're not selfish and you don't need to have to explain yourself, especially not to family.
Not to your mom.
It's actually very generous to share your truth with people, to let people know who you really are, and to share all of who you are. That's vulnerable, that's courageous, that's generous. That is the exact opposite of selfish, is to say, I want you to know all of me. And if there's parts of it you don't like that's about you, you can work on that. But this is who I am. That's not selfish. That's very loving to say, I trust you enough and value enough that I want you to know all of who I am.
I like that.
And so that's a very generous act. And also, selfish, we take that to usually just mean that I just, all I care about is what makes, what's good for me. And I'm just taking, I'm not thinking about other people's feelings. But this idea that I need to take care of myself, of self-care and self-preservation and self-development, that I can be my best self. Those things aren't selfish.
Right.
Those things are why we're here.
Vital.
Is to become our best selves, to figure out who we are and then be the best version of that possible. And so, wanting to be your authentic self is not selfish, and wanting to share your authentic self is in fact super generous.
Yep, absolutely. I have a family member who has 4 children. And of those 4 children, one identifies as pansexual, pansexual? Non-binary pansexual. And the other one is transgender. And this parent approached me and said, I don't really know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this. And I told them, you have to come out yourself. You have to be able to come out yourself. They came out to you, and now you come out yourself so that you can support these children. And that is most important, to provide care for them, to be there, to be the shoulder that they need, to provide financial support, whatever it is that they need. First and foremost, you love your kid, and so you be a parent.
Hey.
Just be a parent.
The little cocky side of me would have probably turned around to my mother and said, do you not think it was selfish of you to have me?
Ooh, all right.
What does that mean for that mom to own her own selfishness in this process of life also? And starting point. But then for, somehow to have that loving conversation, I accept you just as you are.
Yeah.
You came out of me, you are part of my flesh, part of my bone. I carried you for X number of months, whatever. And I love you before you was born, and I love you now and accept you just are. And again, I think as Darrell said, it's about being authentic. Once we can be authentic with who we are, even being around family, and just being authentic, that is the gift of life, I think. That is a gift of life, is when we can find ourselves in those places that we are not ashamed of who we are. And if someone else is ashamed of who I am, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, we are excited to tell you about our next adventure with our Global Fellowship. This year, we'll be going to where the hills are alive as we explore Austria and Alpine Europe for Gay Oktoberfest. Space is extremely limited, so make sure to go to, happeningout.travel/sunshine to reserve your space now.